Welcome back to another episode of the Crime Scene Insiders. I'm one of your hosts, Dion Watson, and I'm joined by my co-host, Angela Davies, and we are going to take you back under the barrier tape.
So today we are going to be doing a true crime episode, but it's a little bit different because it's actually quite personal to me. So let's see how this goes. But it's regarding an assault that I suffered going back over 3 years ago now. And we can talk about it because the court case is actually just finished. It's over and done with. So I am now able to discuss it. And there's a number of aspects to this case that I've been wanting to talk about for a while that I think are really important because it's not been a great process at all. And for someone that's worked in the criminal justice sector for quite a long time, being a victim on the other side and actually, I think, suffering at the hands of the criminal justice system has been an interesting experience. But I have to say, the criminal justice system has made this entire experience much worse. It's not been good, has it?
No, it has not been good at all. Bless you. Yeah, it's not been good in a lot of ways for you. You've had kind of problems from beginning to end with this process, haven't you? And it's one of the things we've discussed personally before about we think there's a lot of issues in the criminal justice system and there is a lot of broken processes in there. And I think through your experience, it's just highlighted that actually what we've discussed is really the case, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's much more impactful when you're the victim and it's happening to you personally, I think.
Of course, yeah.
So I'm going to start by saying that disappointingly, and something that's been really difficult for me to get my head around, is that the guy in question did actually get found not guilty at the end of the process. And therefore, I wouldn't dream of using any names. The Criminal Justice Service has delivered its service and it's delivered its verdict, and that's the way it works in this country. But I still think that there's some really important issues around the whole thing actually that need to be addressed. And I think it's important that victims speak out and have a voice.
It is, yeah. Because one of the things we've never thought about before until kind of you went through this process is that actually when a verdict is made, that suspects do have the chance to appeal decisions, don't they? But
Yeah.
victims actually don't have any outlet where they can do that. So once a verdict's reached, if it's non-guilty, they don't have anywhere to go from that, do they?
No, that's exactly right. I think that the whole system is not very victim focused or victim
No.
centered at all. And like you say, if he were to have been found guilty, he would have then had the right to appeal and stand up against that. He's been found not guilty, and actually we just have to accept that, and there's absolutely nowhere for us to go. And I'm
Yeah.
not okay with that because I'm not okay with the verdict.
It just doesn't seem right, does it? That there's no kind of appeals process or anything when it is towards the victim. I can't wrap my head around that.
No, me either. And there's a few things like that along the way. So I'll start off by describing, and of course, this is you and I talking. So this is my perspective. I was with a friend there that night who has her own perspective. And of course, there's the people that were involved, the guy that assaulted us and his partner that were also there. They all have their own perspectives. So this is the whole thing from my perspective and my viewpoint. But essentially, what happened was myself and my friend had been out for a night out. There was a local festival on in our area. We decided to go about 7 o'clock. We went to a pub on the way and we had a drink in one pub. And then we went to another pub and had another couple of drinks. And then went to a third pub and had another couple of drinks. So we'd had a few drinks throughout the evening. The festival was great. There was a lot of high spirits, a lot of people having fun, a lot of live music. We'd really enjoyed ourselves. And we were out from about 7 to just after midnight, so a few hours. And then we decided we'd have enough, so we'd walk home because we weren't too far away from home. I have a disability, so it sometimes takes me a little bit longer to walk. Sometimes I have to pause or stop. But we were walking back and as we reached a certain point along our road, we heard a lot of shouting and screaming and verbal abuse. We looked across the road and there was a guy, and he was a large guy. He was about 5'10" and he was built.
Yeah.
And he was screaming verbal abuse and towering over a woman who was much smaller. So we assumed that they were partners. We carried on walking down the road and we could still hear them. They were quite a distance from us at this point, but we could still hear them and we could see them by now as well. And the arguing and the abuse continued. And then as we got a bit closer, he grabbed her by the hair and the neck and started dragging her along the road. So he started assaulting her effectively, which
Okay.
was not very nice to see.
No, that's an awful thing to witness.
Our first instinct was to intervene and try and help.
Which, knowing yourself and your friend, that's the sort of people you are. You're helpers. You would go and try and intervene with something like that.
Yes, and I think that some people do, some people don't. I think that in this climate, a lot more people choose not to help anymore. And actually, for reasons I can understand, particularly given what I've just been through.
Yeah.
So I crossed over the road and I said to my friend, I'm going to cross over the road because my hope is that he'll see me and it'll stop the ruckus.
Yeah.
As I crossed over the road, he'd actually let go of her and he'd walked off. So he was a bit further up the road. And I was just behind her and I was saying to her, shall I call the police? We live just down the road. Would you like to come to our house? Like, can I help you? And she asked me to leave it. And then I said again, we literally live down the road. You can come back with us. She did ask me to leave it again. And then by this point, he'd noticed me and he'd turned around and come back. And then he'd started threatening me. He was physically towering over me. I kind of stepped backwards a bit.
So he was kind of verbally abusive, but then intimidating in terms of stood over you as well.
He walked back and then he called me names and then he was stood over me and he was tall. So I kind of stood backwards. But also, I'm of the mind that you don't let bullies get away with anything as well. So I didn't kind of just walk straight off, but I did put my hands up and I didn't do anything to kind of intimidate him or show that I was any kind of threat. I put my hands up and stood back in a non-threatening way and then said, look, let me shake your hand. Let's just leave it. I'll shake your hand. And then he started calling me names. She asked me to leave it for a third time. So at that point, I walked back across the road. I just thought, no, I'm not getting involved, and started walking back off across the road. As I was walking back across the road, he started being really verbally abusive and aggressive to me. He called me a lot of vile names. He basically called me a daft bitch, a daft cow, a fat dickhead, a fat cunt, a fat clown. And I mean, some people who know me might agree, but
I don't think so.
It's not the point. So he was being verbally aggressive and coming across the road as I was walking off. He was coming to the middle of the road. So my friend that I was with at this point, she was on the opposite side of the road. So she started recording on her phone because of the way that he was behaving.
Yeah, because he's coming at you then, isn't he? He's being aggressive. The aggression has turned from his partner to all of a sudden now all of that anger he had is now directed at you.
Towards me, yeah.
Yeah.
And so my friend then started shouting, I think to distract him from me. And she was saying, look at your behaviour. You should be ashamed of yourself. She also swore at him in the same way that he was swearing at me. And then he came across the road to my friend then. He was basically saying that he was a twat. He was born a twat. He could do anything that he wanted to do. And came right up to the phone and then snatched the phone aggressively out of her hand. He then took it into the middle of the road and then he was jumping up and down on her phone and then was kind of running around. We'd gone into the middle of the road then and try and get her phone back. And he was running around us both, taunting, and then he kind of went up the other street, which was adjacent. And then the phone got through back into the middle of the road. So my friend picked up the phone. We looked. At this point, we were going to call the police, but her phone was broken.
Okay.
So she followed him up the road to basically say, this is not okay. Can I have your details? She was basically hoping to get information for insurance because it was completely buggered, or at least it seemed completely buggered because we couldn't get into it at the time, couldn't unlock it.
Yeah.
So as we'd gone further up the road, an argument ensued really between my friend and this guy. And then he reached out and pushed her,
Yeah.
forcibly pushed her in the chest. Later, she ended up with bruising, a handprint on her chest. So she'd reached out to smack him back. And then,
Which I think is a reaction a lot of people would had when someone's just been violent
well,
towards you.
yeah, the verbal aggression alone, and then towering over me and already assaulting his
Exactly.
partner. And she was pointing, and he grabbed her phone again and snatched it out of her hand. And as he did it, he kind of dropped the phone and fell backwards a bit, but then he picked it up and put it down the drain. Of course, my friend was really mad then and wanted a phone out
It
of
sure
the
will
drain.
be. And
Well,
as
yeah.
he was clearly not happy about this recording, was he? So he knew she
Well,
was
no,
recording and was trying to get rid of that effectively. That's what it seems like anyway.
it does, doesn't it? Well, then they're arguing again at the fence, and by this point, myself and his partner were stood in between the two of them, both of us saying, let's just leave it, let's just walk
Trying to
away,
de-escalate the
trying to
situation.
de-escalate it. But then he swung a punch, and I don't believe that it was meant for me. I believe it was meant for my friend, but I was in the middle and I took the punch to my face. And then after that, I was a bit unsteady on my feet. I didn't
Yeah.
remember a lot. My
Well,
friend
he's a
had,
big guy and a punch to the head. That's
yeah, it's not good.
no.
My friend had hold of me, and then she just let go and I fell over and fell onto my backside. I managed to get myself up because they were arguing, and then as I was getting myself up, he basically grabbed her by her arm, twisted it behind her and twisted it back, and then pushed her into the curb. So he badly damaged her arm, but then she'd hit the curb and she was wearing glasses as well. So she was knocked
Oh,
unconscious and she had a big gash in her face. I walked towards him at this point and he punched me twice in the face and knocked me unconscious. And so
oh
then
God.
the next thing that, sorry.
You don't have to apologize. It's a lot. That's a lot to go through anyway, to recall it like this it is a lot. It's intense.
So the next thing that I recall is kind of coming round in a pool of blood, and I could taste gravel and I could taste blood, and I wasn't really sure where I was or what was going on. And I looked to my side and I saw my friend was sat on the curb with a gash in her face and blood streaming down her face and holding on to her arm. And I managed to get myself over to near where she was sat. And then actually the police came and an ambulance came to check us out.
Okay.
I
So
don't
you weren't sure
recall,
at this point how that happened or anything. You just came around and they were coming in.
I didn't recall much about anything at that point, to be honest with you. And I don't recall much about my engagement with the police or the paramedics at that point either.
Was that a bit of a relief to you when you come to, you see your friend in that state? Because that must be a huge shock anyway. But then coming to and then realizing actually the police and the paramedics are there, did that give you some release?
I don't really recall much about what I felt, to be honest. I
Yeah,
often go into protection mode, so I'm more bothered about my friend usually
you are a
than
protector.
myself. And he he was still on the scene. He had stayed
Okay.
on the scene. I vaguely recall seeing him, seeing the police and the paramedics, and then being checked over. And you always do that thing. I don't know why we do this. I don't know if we do it as Northern women or if it's just part of our nature, but always try and like play it down a bit, like it's all right. Like, oh no, I'm okay. And my friend, her arm looked broken, and the paramedic said, I think your arm's broken. And she had hold of her arm. And this is a key thing a bit later down the line as well. She had hold of her arm and it looked awful. But she was like, no, it's fine. I'm sure it's not broken. It'd be fine. I'm sure it's not
Yeah.
broken.
this point, you didn't know who had rang the police or paramedics.
I had no idea, no. It
Yeah.
became apparent a bit later. There was a woman on the scene who my friend said she believed she called the police, and she also appeared to know the couple.
Oh, really?
But
Okay.
I don't really have
Don't
recollection of
recall
that,
that.
to be honest. No.
No.
You've got to bear in mind I'd had a few drinks and then I've been punched in the head 3 times.
Of
And
course,
then
yeah.
also, first time I fell down onto my backside. When he punched me the next 2 times, I fell down and straight onto my face as well. So this is service for you. We got a taxi to hospital.
What? So how
So
did that come about?
we were asked if we would mind getting a taxi. The paramedics were really busy that night. And we
Okay.
were asked, and again, I think it's that part of minimizing it. Yeah, don't worry, we'll be fine. We'll get a taxi.
Okay.
So we
So what was
actually,
happening with the offender and his partner at that point? If you can
um,
remember, of course. Sorry, you've said it was very hazy at this point.
I don't recall much, but I know that he was arrested on the scene. He stayed on the scene and he
Okay.
got arrested on the scene. So we ordered a taxi and took a taxi to the hospital. I don't really recall much about the taxi ride there or getting to hospital. I know we waited for quite some time. And then I have a recollection he was brought into hospital by police.
Okay.
So the guy that assaulted us was brought in and brought into the waiting room. So my friend had gone over and said, he's the person that's just assaulted us. I don't think we should be in the same room. We don't feel
No, that's
safe.
awful.
So we were taken out the back to another room.
Do you know why he was brought in then?
No idea, no. And I've never found out to this day as well. And again, this is something that I'll discuss a bit later, but he was never assaulted or attacked. He never
Mm.
reported any injuries to the police. He never had any injuries and he did not record any injuries. We were in hospital for quite a long time, and at about 5 or 6, they decided to try and set my friend's arm because it was broken. They gave her some sedation. I was able to stay with her and they tried to pull it into place. So actually by this point, I have more memory of this because it was just awful.
It
That whole
sounds
experience was awful.
it.
I think it was a bit better for my friend because she'd had the sedation and couldn't remember.
She couldn't remember.
So the upshot is the injuries were that my friend had a broken arm and she eventually actually needed surgery. She needed a plate put into her wrist. She
Oh.
needed stitches in her head on the evening. I was very fortunate. My nose had been bleeding and I had a lot of bruising, but nothing broke on me. I always say I have a rubber head because I'm really not sure how it survived, but literally nothing broke on me. So
You were
I had,
extremely lucky more than anything else, I think, with that. I think that's sheer luck because from what you've described, you would think you would have more injury than that.
also really lucky as well, I think, because we've talked about it before. I don't know if we've covered it in a podcast, but it's something you and I talk about when we're lecturing and teaching people about one
Mm.
punch deaths.
Yeah,
If somebody just needs to go down the wrong way, like my friend
yeah,
smacked her head off the curb and had her
the
glasses
curb.
on, and
Yeah,
then I've gone face down and face planted the road. So we're both extremely lucky actually that it hasn't gone a different way.
you are unlucky in
Um,
one way that this has actually happened in the first instance, but it could have been a lot worse on the
so
night
much
than it
worse.
was. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had contusions in my mouth and my nose was extremely swollen. I was black and blue and I had concussion and I was
Yeah.
really not right for quite some time afterwards. But like I say, nothing broken. I was very fortunate for that. For that, I am grateful. So our injuries were quite severe. For my friend, Section 20 GBH injuries. For me, they were classed as ABH injuries. So grievous bodily harm and actual bodily harm. That was the night in the incident,
Yeah.
which was bad enough in itself.
It
And then
sounds
it
horrendous.
unfolded. We'd got home, not heard anything from police after a couple of days.
So nobody contacted you to take statements, take photographs, anything like that.
No, no contact from the police at all.
No initial accounts or anything. That is
So
shocking.
the officer at the scene had been informed that she was going to be the OIC. and that she would pick the case up, and then she was doing the arrest.
Yeah.
A couple of days after not hearing, I was like, this is not okay. So I called the police and spoke to the control room, and they advised me that basically there was no officer in charge of the case, that no officer had been appointed, and that it had been missed, and that they
So
needed to switch it now to CID.
oh wow. So if you
Yeah,
hadn't have rang, it wouldn't have been picked up by someone
no,
there. And that's the thing, you have worked as part of the system and you kind of know how these things should go. So that probably give you a bit of a foresight of actually this isn't right. I haven't heard within this time frame.
yeah.
Like some people wouldn't have known that and might have sat on that a lot longer even before that happened.
Well, exactly. But for me, I just thought this is a violent crime. Why have we not heard anything from the police?
Yeah, definitely.
So that was the initial thing, which wasn't great.
No.
And the control room advised me that they would switch it to CID and that somebody would pick it up and that we'd get a call. I asked that we got a call sooner rather than later, and that really it needed to be the same day. We did get a call back from somebody who was in CID saying that they now had it and they'd picked it up. It hadn't actually been given to somebody specifically yet. And the person that was going to be the OIC was on leave. So they were looking to book in a time or date for them to come and take statements from us, or take an initial account at least. Then it was going to run into kind of 10, 12 days since incident without any contact other than me chasing from the police. So at this point, they hadn't appointed a crime scene investigator to come and take injury photographs. They were in the midst of appointing an officer in charge of the case, but no investigation had been done or started, and it didn't sound like it was going to start for days, actually,
Wow.
which is a huge letdown as far as
It's a
I'm concerned.
massive it's a failing in my eyes.
Mm,
That's a failing. And we know as CSIs after someone's been assaulted that you don't wait that period of time to go and take pictures. And it might be that you take photographs later on as well because more bruising, etc., comes out, but you don't wait that period of time to take photographs of someone's assault.
No, you'd usually do it in maybe a couple of stages, because you've got the
Hmm.
initial injuries and bruising, and then, like you say, other bruising can potentially come out, but also bruising starts to fade and change colour as well over a
Yeah,
period of time,
it
doesn't it?
does.
As a consequence, I just started my own investigation. I think one of the things
Uh,
that helped me, I went a little bit into work mode, even though I know that I don't work in the industry in the same way anymore. And I think that that helped me keep going a little bit and give me something to
like a
focus on
focus.
in some ways. I don't really recall, but there are photographs from the hospital. And then we took later injury photographs. And then
Yeah.
also what I did was start looking for CCTV, because one of my biggest fears was that if it's going to get to a week, 10 days down the line, it's potential that CCTV has been recorded over,
Because quite a lot of it
and
does
then
that
it's lost
after,
then.
yeah, because quite a lot, even after 7 days, starts to go. And then if you're relying on people's own storage, if they're not a large storage, it just starts going over it. Even after days, it can start, can't it?
Yeah. And when the OIC eventually came, I was really glad that I had done this, because it was a couple of weeks after when they were taking our statements, and my friend by this point had had surgery on her arm. So you're talking, it was a good couple of weeks after when they finally came to take statements. And I was talking to him about the CCTV that I'd recovered. And I asked
Mhm.
about CCTV that he'd recovered. And he was telling me the area that they'd been looking, and he looked in completely the wrong place. He'd sent officers to completely
Oh,
the
you're
wrong.
kidding.
No, and I said, why did you do that? And he said, well, we hadn't got an account from anyone or spoken to anyone at that point. We'd just got a vague idea from the log. So from the log, we believed it was this area. And I was like, do you,
Why?
like, yeah, I don't know. I have no words really, to be
That's
honest with
the
you.
basic of an investigation. You get even if it's not the statement, even if it's an initial account to go off, you go off that to start looking for CCTV. Don't just put a pin in a map and go, there'll do. That's
House to
wild.
some house to house and CCTV inquiries are policing basics, aren't they?
101.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, he'd been looking in the wrong place. So I'd managed to get some CCTV footage from the pub. I'd also managed to go down the road where the assault happened, and one of the people there had a ring doorbell. And then actually, we still had footage on my friend's phone. We thought that had been lost because the phone had been broken, but she'd previously been working abroad and she'd bought it's called an OtterBox, and it's what the
Okay.
army used to protect devices from explosion and stuff.
Oh,
So
really?
yes, but this is how violent like the attack was. Even with the phone, the OtterBox was completely broken and damaged. And then the phone had been frozen. She'd had to do a full reset, but we still managed to get into it and it still had the footage.
Oh, wow.
So there was those pieces of CCTV leading up to it. I did suggest to the officer that there was another pub further down the road, that perhaps he look there and actually perhaps he speak to the landlord of the pub where I got the CCTV from, and he might have some from a bit earlier to show the assault of the guy on the girlfriend. In all honesty, I have to say I don't believe the police did much investigation at all. I
It
think
doesn't
that
sound like it.
they took what we gave them and that was about it. A crime scene investigator came round to take photographs, but it was over 2 weeks later.
Oh, God.
Yeah,
It's all, it's it's crazy. And we do hear more and more, unfortunately, from other people I know who've been victims of crime. They have been asked to do things like get their own CCTV. And
yeah.
it just blows my mind. I know resources are short and there's becoming more and more pressures on police forces, but basics of those bits of investigation are being missed that are so important that it does just blow my mind.
And actually captured early on means that you're trundling along quite quickly then. You
Yeah,
can move your case much faster.
exactly. And when you've just been a victim of crime, that for the person who is going through it, that's the biggest thing at that time. It's traumatic. So then to expect that person to do their own investigation, it's just,
Well, that's the thing. I don't think there's any expectation for us to do our own investigation. I think that because of my background, I'm just fortunate
yeah,
in that I just had the wherewithal to do it, and I knew the actions that needed to be taken.
yeah,
There'd be a lot of people in that situation that wouldn't
that wouldn't
have the
have.
same experience and knowledge and wouldn't even think to do it because
No,
it is a traumatic experience and it should be the last thing that you're thinking about.
it, yeah, 100%. And it does
But
sound so violent that to then expect in that, like, it's bad enough in any situation, to be honest, that people are having to do their own bits. But in a case like that, that's just awful,
yeah,
really
it was
poor.
not good. No, I see appointed for days, not getting to us for quite some time after a violent incident to even take initial
Initial accounts.
accounts,
Yeah.
and then not starting the CCTV investigation. And then the only CCTV and information taken is what we've gathered and given to them. It's a bad crack, really.
Yeah. Well, it's a shitstorm, that, isn't it? There's just not one part of that that has went
It's not good
as it
service.
should. No, it's really poor.
And then I have to say, when I was in court giving evidence for this assault, what I realised was how shit the case file was. There was only a couple of pictures of myself, and two of them were of me on the floor with blood coming out of my nose that were taken by the offender after he'd done it.
What?
I
So,
know,
so he took images as well
yeah,
as part of this assault.
yeah. So once I was on the floor and my nose was bleeding, it was after the first punch that I took and then I'd fallen over. And they used this against me actually.
Bizarre.
Yeah, it was used against me in court because I said that I'd been punched like to the head, and I thought it'd been kind of to the side of the face. I couldn't remember exactly where I was taking it. And then they were asking me to be specific about where I'd started bleeding, and I said I can't, I don't recall. Like I didn't
Been,
remember, but my best
yeah.
guess was like when I was punched square on in the face. But then they produced this picture of me sat on the floor bleeding and said, "Oh, well, there you are, sat on the floor bleeding." And I'm a
So
bit
they
like,
knew.
but yeah, but exactly. But I was a bit like, I don't know what this goes to prove other than
No,
that I've been punched in the
exactly.
face. Like,
You'd been violently assaulted. You had concussion, and this was 3 years ago.
yeah.
I don't. Does it matter where on someone's head that somebody punched someone, or does it matter that someone punched someone in the head? Like, which,
Well, you would hope, wouldn't you?
what's the relevance?
So the case file contained two pictures that he took of me on the floor with my face bleeding, and then two pictures of me in the hospital. And the
That
only
you took?
my friend had taken.
Yeah, because there was no
Yeah,
CSI there. So not
no, there
professional
was not.
photographs.
No, and then also there was only a couple of photographs of my friend in the hospital, and then some later of her arm. So the case file was a bit dire. And again, I'd taken those photographs of my friend in hospital. Yeah, so there wasn't a single professional photograph in that case file. Like, although the crime scene investigator had come later, there was still not a single professional photograph included.
That's so strange that none of them were there. None.
There was also a piece of CCTV missing that was from the pub that I'd submitted. So they only used the footage from a friend's phone and the stuff from the Ring doorbell. And another key thing for me as well was the statement taken. So we didn't get our statements taken till a couple of weeks afterwards. So you've had two people who have been violently assaulted, smacked in the head, have concussion, and then also one of them who's ended up having surgery and is then on heavy pain medication. And we all know that the further and further away you get from an incident, the more murky things become as well. Now, the OIC had arranged for a time to come round and give statements. And he came at sometime like 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which we thought would be reasonable to get both of our statements done. And actually, he was that long with me. It was almost like 5 hours
Wow.
taking a statement that by the end of it, I felt exhausted. I
I'm not
felt drained.
surprised.
And he asked me to sign it there and then. And I read through it, and there wasn't something that I wholeheartedly agreed with. Like he hadn't put a sequence of events with regards to the punches in kind of accurately. And I said that I didn't agree with it. But at that point, I was so tired, I couldn't be bothered to change it. And I said to him, I don't want to sign this now. I want to take it. I'll read through it and then we can amend it and sign it. But he insisted that it had to be done there and then. Now, we both know that that's not the case.
No, it's not. No.
But I felt backed into a corner and he refused to go without me signing it. And I was exhausted, but I was also then concerned about my friend because she was on heavy medication and it was heading towards like 8, 9 o'clock at night for her to then have to give her statement
To
after
then
I've been doing it for
start.
about 5 hours to start.
Yeah, really, that should have been postponed then in
I
that
think it was
instance.
really inappropriate, but really inappropriate that he forced me to sign there and then.
Yeah, because getting on for that time at night, really, what could have happened then is take a pause. You go off and he go off and come back at a later date, in which time you could have reread through your statement, you could have addressed any amendments and signed it there and then he could have started with your friends. To be starting somebody else's at that time of night as well as just
But
crazy.
also, she was so fed up, and because he was there, she kind of wanted to just get it over and done with as
Done
well.
with.
So he was a bit insistent. She was
Fair
like, let's
enough.
just do it. Let's get it over and done
Let's
with.
do it.
So, yeah, there were a number of things that weren't great throughout. But then we get to trying to get it to court, and oh my goodness. It happened in the September. I think the case file was originally submitted maybe in the December time. I think then some things were bounced back to the OIC, coming on to I think the January, February time. They were still being asked for more information from the CPS, so its decision had not been made.
And can I ask, was your offender out on bail at that point?
At this point, he was on conditional bail with the condition not to come near us, still walking the streets. Oh, and a key thing that I've missed, we found out that the reason that there'd been a drop of the OIC and the person that was arrested on scene didn't keep it or pick it up is because he actually assaulted the police officer who arrested him. Now, I got told two things from two different officers, so I don't know which one's true. One told me is that she was quite badly assaulted and she was off on the sick for some time, and that's why she was no longer the OIC. Another one told me that it was not such a bad assault. It was probably classed as a section 39 or section 47, and he'd basically kicked her in the legs and kicked her to move her out of the way and kicked her several times.
Lovely. So now at this point, that's an assault on a girlfriend, assault on yourself and your friend, assault on a policewoman. I'm seeing a theme here.
Yeah, it's 4 of us within a short space of
women
time.
in a short period of time on one night.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be key a little bit later down the line as well. But anyway, essentially, it took quite some time for the case file to be submitted and for the CPS to decide that they were going to go ahead and charge. And we had our first court date, but it was quite a way down the line. So I don't think that the charge or anything happened for about a year. And after a year, he was actually left on unconditional bail. And I think
changed
at some point,
unconditional.
Yeah, and at some point the bail dropped.
And he doesn't live far from you either, does he?
I'm not sure. He's in this same area. Yeah. It took overall 3 years to get to court. It was going to be 5 years, almost 6, but we stood up and we fought it. And so we got it brought forward.
A lot of people wouldn't know A, how to do that, or B, have that fight to do it. So good on you for fighting that and pressing to get it moved forward, because a lot of people wouldn't even know how to start that.
Well, the first court date was just less than 2 years after the initial incident. We basically got told that this is the court date and you need to be ready to attend to give evidence. So keep 3 days free, essentially. And this was in May 24, and the assault happened September 11, 2022. So we think we're going to court. We take time off work. My friend was going to be out of the country. She made sure she was in the country. We prepared ourselves, and it was supposed to be starting on the Tuesday. On the Monday, we hadn't heard anything about basically when we would be given evidence, what time we needed to be get into court, order of evidence, anything like that. So again, me being me, I called up and said, when are we to be expected in court? Is it going ahead? We haven't heard anything. They told us, we'll call you back. Still waiting on confirmation from CPS. They phoned us then at 4:30 the night before and said, oh, you're actually down as a floating trial, so you're not a fixed trial. And for anybody that doesn't know, it means that at this point, a court has not been appointed and a judge has not been appointed, and that everybody is already tied up in other things. So if somebody gets through something a bit quicker, you might get in. So you're essentially floating, they call it.
Okay.
They told us that we were a floating trial and that we had to be on standby, but they expected that we'd be there by the afternoon at least. So here we are, a bit shocked, not really sure at that point what floating meant. We hadn't really been told much. And then at 5 o'clock, we get another call to say that the case had been cancelled.
As a victim, that's got to be a lot. As we know ourselves, we've went to court as professionals, but as a victim, that's got to add on a whole new level of anxiety and stress. And how did it feel to you?
We were angry, I think. I don't know if it's anger sometimes or just frustration. at the way that you're
It's
being
understandable.
treated. Like it's 2 years, almost 2 years, and like the 5 o'clock the night before we're expected to go. So like say we've planned, we've taken time off work, we've built ourselves up to it, we've been running through things in our head. You've of course got to go through a trial. We both know what it's like to go to court. So you've got your prosecution counsel who will take you through examination in chief and walk you through things. But the defense counsel's there to try and they trip you up. They call into question your integrity. It's a brutal process to go through.
It really can be.
And because of our experience, we already knew this. So I already had an anticipation that it was going to be awful. Then you've got to face the person that's assaulted you, and then you've got to go through it all and relive the trauma. So
It's not an easy thing to do.
no, and there's times where I wanted to run. I just thought it's 2 years later, like I can't be bothered with this. Like, why is it taking so long to get to court for one?
Yeah.
And for two, let's just get out of here. I
Yeah.
don't
And
need to do this.
that's such a massive failing for victims anyway, isn't it? And like you say, you decided that you could go ahead with that and were willing to go ahead with it. But actually, by this point, how many victims have fell out of the system because of the stresses of it all? It's
Well,
awful.
it gets worse, Dee, and the whole thing about it is worse. The state the criminal justice system in, the way that victims being treated, the backlog of cases that are current, and how long people are waiting to even get to court. So it got cancelled on that day, and we were advised that we would find out within a couple of days when it was reset for. We didn't hear from anyone, and 4 days later, we got a letter to say that the next trial date had been set for October 2026.
Oh my God. So nearly two
Nearly,
years again from 2 years from the, so nearly
yeah,
4 years on.
yeah. And they
Oh,
expect you to go to trial and to remember everything because they don't want you to read from your statement. They want you to deliver from your experience. Well, hang on, my experience was 2 years ago. And then
and you,
4 years ago. And actually, I think at one point, they also reset for nearly 2027. So we were looking at nearly 5 years. And I said, what's the point?
and the thing is, people have got to try and move on from that. You cannot live in that state of what it's happened. So of course people have tried to process, you've tried to move on. You aren't going to be sitting mulling over the details of that like daily or anything. So of course it's not going to be fresh in your memory because why would you want to keep reliving that?
Over and
So
over. We weren't okay with this new court date. We were really, again, frustrated. So we tried to speak to CPS. Now, this is also failings, and I don't know if this is just poor communications between witness care and CPS. I don't know. But essentially, we started trying to put in complaints and speak to CPS. We were told that nobody from CPS would speak to us. We were told that we needed to put our complaints in to His Majesty's Courts and Tribunal Service. So we put a complaint into HMCTS, and it was a few months before we got a response from that. And that basically said, this is not our problem. This is down to the CPS. This is like a local CPS and court issue, and it's down to the CPS to set the trial dates. So you need to go back to the CPS. We were trying to get an understanding of how CPS are prioritising caseloads, like what's getting through the courts and what's not moving through the courts. Because at this point, like we've seen all the political riots that were ongoing. Now people were getting arrested and through the court system in days.
yeah,
So
very
really,
short.
when they want to do it, they can do it, can't they?
Mm.
And bearing in mind, our criminal justice system is not supposed to be political. And yet currently, there's such a heavy political influence, and politics is playing such a huge role in policing. And from those trials, people were getting through in days. Now, for violent crime, you're looking at years here.
Yeah.
So we were trying to get an understanding of what's your prioritization? How do you figure this out? Like, why are we waiting so long to go to court?
Which are
We
fair
weren't
questions.
we weren't getting a response, and we basically, in the end, I think there was something like 85 or 86 emails. we have saved that were sent
Wow.
backwards and forwards, trying to get engagement and a response and getting battered off. Witness care were dealing with us and being passed from witness care to the CPS, who battered us back to HCMTS, who battered us back to the CPS, and nobody was picking this ball up. Nobody was talking to us. Nobody was giving us any information. So we got the MP involved, and she did, in all fairness, write a letter on our behalf, which I think did help, because the court date got brought forward, and it was brought forward to June 2025. So an almost 16-month difference.
Hell of a difference.
Yeah, we're still waiting quite a long time. You're still just shy of 3 years there, but at least it was brought forward. But anyway, the 10th of June arrives. We set time aside. We take time off work. We organise our life around it, and we get to court. And this time we get to court. We're in the witness.
Physically there this
we're
time.
physically at court. We're in the witness care suite. We're obviously very nervous.
Yeah.
We were asked to come down in the morning, which we did. It got to lunchtime. We popped out to get some lunch, and there was the offender.
Oh.
So that was quite nerve-wracking.
Did he recognise you at that point, do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he did.
That's got to feel intimidating in itself then, coming face to face with them.
Well, we just kept going in one direction, and in fairness, he did take himself off in another direction. It's a couple of years down the line for him. Who knows how his life's changed and where he's at with things. But it's still
that's daunting.
Yeah, still not great. And then we were sat waiting after lunch. The case had been called to court, and we sat, and then the next person we see is our barrister, who called us in to say that the case had been cancelled again.
What? So you've got yourself, it's bad enough getting cancelled the day before court, but then you're physically in the building, you've got all that adrenaline, you've seen the offender, and then all of a sudden they're cancelled.
Yeah.
And what was the reasoning behind that one?
They said that they weren't prepared. Not our barristers. Apparently the defence weren't prepared. And I was like, that has got to be nonsense. You're
almost 2.5 years on.
Yeah, almost 3 years from event. Like, you've had all of this evidence. And they were saying that there was CCTV evidence that they'd not seen. Now, I didn't find this out till a bit later, because our barrister wouldn't tell us. She wouldn't tell us much at all. She was quite standoffish, but I suppose that's the role she has to be. She's there to do her job, not be our friends. So I get that.
No, but you're her witnesses at that point, and you're there for the police investigation. The police have brought this forward, and they're there for that side. So then to be so offish with you, it's not going to build a good rapport or anything like that, is it? I don't know. I find that a bit strange in itself.
I suppose she's just a bit detached. I suppose, like, if they took everything home, it'd be difficult, wouldn't it, with the things they're dealing with day in, day out. But I do know what you're saying. I did struggle a little bit, but I didn't care so long as a good job was done.
Yeah.
But I was also, I suppose, too, in the midst of being frustrated and mad about it being cancelled again. And I couldn't wrap my head around how they could then be saying that they're not prepared.
Yeah. Unbelievable. All that time later.
After all that time. So we were sent home.
And you've had multiple dates at that point that have been cancelled as well. So they should have been prepared for any one of those dates that you were supposed to attend on.
Well, our barrister fought to have us go in the next day, because it was set across 3 days. And of course, we put the time aside, like I said. So this was the first day. And so she said that the rest of the afternoon was enough time for them to review, for us to go back in. But actually, the court, for whatever reason, decided no and fully adjourned it. So that was down to the court at this point, not the CPS. They were fighting to go to trial that following day. We then got a letter to say that it would go in 2027. And we just went bonkers.
And I'm not surprised.
We got the MP involved again. And like I say, we've been battling to try and get a meeting with CPS. As it was, we got another trial date for July, the end of July, which we took, and we did end up having a meeting with the CPS in this time. It didn't start off too well because we were offered either a Teams meeting or a face-to-face meeting. And bearing in mind, we've been messed about. In total, by the end, we'd had 5 different trial dates, and there's 86 emails between ourselves and CPS and witness care and His Majesty's courts and tribunals.
Wow.
So we're not in a good place. We've had no communications really. And then he comes in, and the first thing he said is, well, you chose to have for this on Teams, and I don't know why you chose to do that, but now essentially I can't really talk to you anything about the case. I don't know whether you're recording this. I don't know if anyone else is in the room. I don't know what notes are being taken. Bearing in mind we're all supposed to be on the same side.
Yeah. And why offer it? Why is that an option? If you're going to not discuss it, of course you want to discuss it. That's the whole purpose of the meeting. So why have that as an option? That's just insane.
Well, I think that there may have been an error in the new OIC's part. We had a new OIC by this point who'd organised the meeting. As it was, it didn't start off well, but by the end of it, we had arranged a meeting for the following day at a police station, and that went much better. And I have to say, it was good that we had that meeting with this guy from CPS, because I think that it helped us going into court. I think it helped restore our faith a little bit that we were at last being heard. But one of the things he said, and which I get, is that our trial got brought forward because we got the MP involved and because we jumped up and down and shouted about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're not the only ones that are stuck in a backlog, but we were the ones that we know the system and had the wherewithal to decide to go ahead and do that.
Yeah.
And so he suggested that perhaps we jump the queue. And I can see what he's saying, but also I don't think any victim should be in this position. I don't think any victim should be fighting so hard to get to court. There is a backlog. It was apparently at 70,000 cases. That's set to go to 100,000 cases backlog.
Oh.
Which is just outrageous. And people are waiting 5 and 6 years to get to court.
Wow. Which
I think is chronic. It's an absolute really fundamental failing in the system.
Completely. That it's kind of get me head around those numbers, because every day we're adding to it. Every single day there's new stuff coming in. So,
and then that trial could have been through the next day, but for whatever reason, the court decided to adjourn it again. So I do see what he's saying, but also, you know, maybe people should start putting their hands up. Maybe people should start jumping up and down and writing to MPs. Maybe we need to start banging our pots and pans and making some noises, because it's not okay. And it's not okay that victims of crime are treated like this.
It's not. It's not. And if people don't start standing up for it and we just accept it as, oh, well, that's the way it is, then nothing ever changes, does it?
No.
And as you've addressed from so many things that have gone wrong in this, even up to here, we're not even through it all. How many things are not right? There's some huge system failures here. It's not really fit for purpose.
So many things. And I think that I might be best being clear here in saying that some of like the sequence of my remembering of this might be all over, because this has happened over 3 years. It's been a lot, and then it's also been very traumatic from the assault, but then also the recent trial that I've been through has also been quite traumatic, and I wasn't in a great place after it. So I'm giving you sequences here. Some of it may be a little bit out, but and like I said at the beginning, this is my perspective. Yeah. But I think that I felt let down from the outset.
I'm not surprised.
And being somebody that's worked in the system, I started working in the criminal justice system early on. I worked in victim support.
So you know, victims should be treated as well.
Yeah, I worked in victim support in the court system, actually, in the witness care unit. So I would take people around the courtrooms and talk to them about what would happen. So this is all advice that I've been given. It's not like I don't know the court system, how it all runs. It just wasn't okay. None of it at this point was okay.
No.
And like I said, when you're getting so far down the line, you're thinking, well, there's no point. He's been walking the streets for however long.
Yeah.
Also, errors that were made in this time. So, like I said, he'd assaulted his partner that we'd witnessed. He'd assaulted myself and my friend. Then he assaulted the police officer. Originally, we had information from witness care that was saying that he'd pleaded guilty to assaulting the officer, therefore that wouldn't be part of the case. And then a bit further in, we had another letter saying that he'd now changed his plea to not guilty. And then actually it all transpired that it was just an error in paperwork and that actually he had still pleaded guilty. Because obviously when he'd not pleaded guilty, we were like, great, because this is going to be part of the case and actually she's going to come and give evidence.
Yeah. Which is what I think most people would expect, because it's not something that's happened, as we know, as part of a court case. You can't introduce past crimes,
No,
which I understand, because then there's a bias of, well, this person has done this before, and that doesn't mean that they're guilty of a crime because they've got something in the past.
no.
But this happened on the same evening as a result of him being arrested because of your assault, the assault on yourselves. So it's completely related, it's completely relevant.
Well, it kind of paints a picture of the state of mind he was in and the level of aggression.
Hmm. Completely agree.
But consequently, because it was not guilty, that information wasn't actually ever brought into court, and
So
nor were
because
we
he'd went,
allowed to mention it.
that's terrible. So he pleaded guilty, and then they said, okay, that's not relevant now, and you can't
So
mention that as part of your trial.
no, so he'd be dealt with separately on that count.
Interesting. That was a
Yeah.
good defense solicitor movie.
Well, it was, yeah. And that's the whole point of them, isn't it? And these are some of the things where I think it's unbalanced and it's not victim centered. So we got to spend 5 minutes with our prosecuting barrister beforehand, and they get half a day to read over the case file and prepare. They get paid for that half a day to prepare, and then there they are in court standing up. Somebody employs a defense solicitor. They get to spend as long as it takes with that defense solicitor, and they get to go over and over and over the stories. They get to know them, they get to know the personalities. And then also, like we said at the beginning, if doesn't go in their favour, they can appeal. But if it doesn't go in our favour, we can't appeal.
And it's
It's
crazy.
completely unbalanced.
It is completely unbalanced. And I don't know why that side of it has never really come into my brain, that once a jury makes a decision, that's it, it's final, because we do know about the appeals for offenders. And I don't, like I say, I don't know why that's never crept into my brain, but that just seems so unfair that you don't have the same privilege the other way around.
Mm. No,
Well,
a victim's got to take the verdict and just crack on.
that's it.
So we had a real fight to get to court. We were messed about a lot. We were completely let down by the CPS and the criminal justice system. We eventually had a meeting, like I say, which it was a good thing that we had. I think that it redeemed a little bit for us, and it made us feel a little bit heard, I think, at that point. And then the trial went ahead actually at the end of July. Everyone's best guess was that he would probably plead guilty to it once we got to trial, because it was on video footage and CCTV footage, and it was difficult to know
Yeah.
like how he could defend against that, because you can actually see him doing the things that I've
Assaulting him.
described.
Yeah.
Um,
And often we know from our experiences going as professionals, when you get there, quite often they check and they're like, okay, are all the witnesses there? And often it's a tactic used, because sometimes victims drop out for the reasons we've already discussed. It's intimidating, it's not a nice process. And then when you're waiting that long, some people do think, I'm just not doing it, and just don't go. So then if you get to court and your witnesses aren't there, they look like, okay, and the case gets dropped. So
that's
it is
exactly
often a
it.
tactic, isn't it?
Yeah, they wait to see who's going to turn up to see whether they'll go ahead or whether they'll change the plea.
Mm.
Of course, we turned up because we were determined to go to court. We believed in the justice system and that it's the right thing to do. Like I say, I've worked in it for a long time, so I've always tried to do the right thing. I'm not saying that my response to this assault was perfect. Like in hindsight, maybe I should never have crossed the road or engaged with them. My brain at that point was like, hopefully, if he sees somebody, it will just disturb them.
Stop. Hmm.
And then it turned on me, and then my friend obviously was filming because he turned on me. So it escalated really quite quickly. And in hindsight, should have maybe just phoned the police straight away.
It's
In
sometimes
this,
not how you react, though, is it?
no, and in the same vein, the police are not always the fastest on a response,
Uh,
particularly on a Saturday night when somebody's
mhm.
being assaulted.
That's what just came into my head as well. And sometimes distraction can be a simple thing that stops something from escalating. So him seeing you,
Yeah.
in some cases, that's enough. Someone will think, oh, shit, and stop and wander off. And that's the thing, you don't know how that's going to go. So I can completely see why you would do that as well.
But the other thing is as an ex-scene investigator, how many times have we seen it where people have tried to help people in assault or domestic assault situations and have come off worse?
Worse.
The other thing is, though, there's this real thing that goes about now called the bystander effect,
Hmm.
where people know what happens and they know how the criminal justice system works, and people just watch. Like at one point, when I'm laid in the middle of the road face down, he comes and gets down by the side of me. I have no idea what he was doing. I still don't to this day. But also, then
Oh, that's awful.
a car actually drives around me. So a vehicle sees
Wow.
me in the middle of the road and drives around me and drives off. And like that's not something I could do. And we have produced something called the
Me neither.
bystander effect. And a lot of people don't come off very well from intervening in these things. And that's something that I do know and have witnessed through being a scene investigator, but clearly I did not learn a lesson from that, did I? I
But
had to
then I
learn it a
don't
very difficult way.
But then I don't know what the answer to that is. I personally think, I'd like to think anyway, that I would react in the same way. I don't think I could just ignore someone being assaulted or anything like that. And I would hate to think we've become a society where people stand by and just watch and let that go on. I kind of bear the thought of that. Look, of the recent attacks we've seen in America, the young girl who was murdered on the train, and you've got people stood by, and
Just
just
watching.
I hate to think that's the line of society that we're going down.
Me too. And I've been saying for a while and since the trial, I won't do it again. I won't help anyone again. I won't intervene in the same way. I don't know that I'll engage with the criminal justice system again. And that's coming from me, somebody who's always believed in and had faith in the justice system and worked within it and always wanted to help people and help get
Help.
justice for people. And no longer know that I feel like that. But I think it's all still quite fresh. So that's my initial feeling. Who knows what will happen
It is very raw for you.
when I process and move through it. But I don't know that it's worth it
Yeah, which
because
is
this
really
is the
sad.
other thing. Well, we get to trial. So he's assaulted 4 women, but the information about the police officer's not brought in because he's pleaded guilty, but also then he and her both lie and say that that assault never took place. And the police officer have only got our footage and CCTV that we submitted from the other road and didn't go and carry out CCTV further down the road as had suggested, which might have actually shown him assaulting her. That
Okay.
was not done. So there you've got him and her saying that that never happened and no information about the police officer. So then it's them
It's
two
it's
against us
it's your
two.
word against then. So there's no the CCTV footage of the interaction with yourself and your friend and him and the assault there, but there's no footage of actually the incident that it started from and
Yeah.
kind of that follows on of you talking with her and it leading on to this,
Yeah,
which is massive actually that that
it
section's
is.
missing.
So the pub CCTV, which I collected, which for whatever reason was never entered, I don't know. Basically, the landlord had heard the ruckus and pointed the CCTV in that direction. Now, the police could have gone to the pub because I told him that he had it, and actually, he's got a couple of different cameras. So it was pointing to the direction of us because of the ruckus. He moved the camera to see. But actually, previously, it may have been pointing where it had already happened. Also, a couple of doors down, there was, I think it's a union or workingmen's club as well, which I think has CCTV on the outside. But also the houses that may potentially had ring footage. So
That's such a
yeah,
shame because it does become instrumental then when it starts becoming your word against theirs of actually this happened, which then led on to this. If they're saying now it's your word against theirs, that could have made a huge difference.
well, that's the thing. And also, I couldn't wrap my head around where there would be any defense. I didn't know what the defense could possibly be because it was on,
Mhm.
regardless, you see him assaulting us.
Yeah,
But the defense that they provided was self-defense, which was interesting. And then the whole defense cross-examination was, well, it was awful, but it was awful to me because it was based entirely on lies. And there were a couple of things that she said where I was just like, no, that didn't happen. And strangely, she closed down and changed the direction of a questioning. And I was thinking to myself, they're grasping at straws here. They're lying. They're absolutely lying. But whatever happened, she has managed to somehow put an element of doubt in that jury's mind.
yeah,
Now, the action was there, and we know that in law, you've got to prove both action and intention. We know the action was there. You can see it on CCTV. You can see our injuries. I suppose it's proving that intention. I guess that's my best guess. I don't know because this is the other thing. He sits in the box all the way throughout the trial and listens to everything. We got told by our prosecuting barrister, you can, if you want to, sit in the public box to listen to everything else that goes on in the trial. However, this is supposed to have been an intimidating and traumatic event that you haven't come out of very well. But then you're going to sit in the box and listen and face him. So actually, basically, it goes against you and it's not perceived very well and it's perceived quite poorly. And I'm like,
that is
I
terrible.
thought that was disgusting. I thought there shouldn't be
I
any
do.
perceptions made. Why can't you go and face a bully? Why can't you listen
No,
to what's going on in a trial that's personally and significantly affected you without it coming across as anything other than
yeah,
wanting to be there and knowing what's going on?
you're there to try and get justice for what's gone on, and you should be able to listen to all aspects of that and that not mean anything.
No, it blew my mind as well. So as a consequence, we did not go in to the court and sit. So all I know is from my experience in the box. I can't talk about anybody else's experience. And then, of course, things that we were told afterwards. But basically, the defense was based on self-defense and lies. There was a suggestion that the bit that I described at the beginning, where we were all in the middle of the road, where he'd taken my friend's phone and been jumping up and down on it, then was running around it. I kind of, at one point, it was on the floor. I'd tried to put my foot on it and get the phone. And as he's running around, they're saying then at that point, I put hands on him first and I pushed him. So essentially, I'm the first person to put hands on, which obviously opens up for self-defense. Now, it's a lie. I didn't. That didn't happen. And unfortunately, the CCTV footage isn't that amazing of that part of it because it's coming from a Ring doorbell further down the road,
yeah,
and they didn't submit the pub footage, which showed it a bit clearer. Then they basically said that later on again, where he restole my friend's phone and then dropped backwards with it, then picked it up and put it down a drain. What he said is that they said was that my friend had kicked him in the testicles, which was just absolute bollocks.
yeah,
It never happened. And when they told me that about the CCTV, I was like, no. And I literally walked them through what happened on the CCTV. I said, that's him grabbing the phone. He's stepped backwards, he's dropped the phone, he's picked it back up. Now he's putting it in the grate. Like, I couldn't wrap my head around how they were getting testicles kicked at that point from there.
yeah,
So I walked them through it step by step. And the other thing is, had she have kicked him in the testicles, there's not a cat in hell's chance he would have been able to go on, mess about with a phone, and then assault us in the way that he did. Like, just no chance. So it was based on me putting hands on first. She kicked him in the testicles. I'd crossed the road and the woman had asked me to leave it a couple of times. In fairness, that's true. She did ask me to leave it a couple of times. They asked me why I didn't do that. And I said, well, actually, I have here. You can see me leaving it. You can see me walking back across the road. Granted, maybe I should have done that a bit earlier, but I didn't.
And you have experience of dealing with domestic violence people from your work as a CSI as well. And sometimes they're reluctant to come forward or to accept help. So sometimes that first time they might ignore it. So then for you to check again, I don't blame you in doing that either.
They do, and also when people are frightened
Hmm.
and they don't want things to escalate, or they don't want to be seen to be seeking help from somebody that's just harmed them, they are like, no, no, leave it. Like I said, people, you diminish things, you make it smaller than what it is. Like my friend sat at the side of the road, her arms mangled, but she's like, no, no, it's fine, it's not broken.
Exactly.
Then it came to bite her in the ass a bit, because they were basically saying that in the footage by the side of the road, and this was police body cam footage, by the way, in that she was saying, no, no, my arm's not broken. And I was like, but so what? Like, it was broken and she needed surgery. Like,
Yeah,
she'd
there's
sat at the
proof it was
side of the
broke.
road, just being assaulted, being unconscious. And they're trying to call that in as evidence.
Yeah, that's clutching. Absolutely clutching,
Yeah.
isn't it?
They suggested that I'd followed them, which hadn't been the case. They suggested at one point that myself and my friend had them surrounded. It wasn't actually the case. I was stood in the middle of the road and them two were stood on the side of the pavement arguing. It was CCTV perspective, but we'd not surrounded him at any given point. They also said that I was never knocked unconscious. But I was like, well, you can watch it, because if you play back the CCTV, there I am being punched. Now there I am laid in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And I'd said that I believed I was unconscious for a couple of minutes, but I didn't know. It was just what somebody had said to me. And they were trying to say to me, like, how long were you unconscious? How long were you And I was like, I don't know. I don't
Someone who is
recall.
unconscious doesn't know
Doesn't
how
know they're
long they're
unconscious.
unconscious.
They
Yeah.
don't even know they're unconscious. So I
It's
was
the
like,
whole act of being unconscious, not conscious.
well, I was saying, I don't know. I believe this is what somebody said to me, but it's not my account. Like, I was unconscious. That's just what I believed. They said that that was a lie and that I wasn't unconscious. And then apparently the doctor at the hospital had recorded that I wasn't unconscious. And I was like,
How would
I
they
can't.
know?
I don't recall what I said, because I was just like, well, I mean, what can I do with that? What if he did? But he wasn't there. And also the CCTV shows me being punched in the face and then laying in the road. Like, why don't you count the time between me going down and getting to the curb? Like, that might give us a more accurate indication. And also, did that doctor mean checking me over then? And of course, he
Yeah.
was checking me because I'd been punched in the head and I'd been unconscious. Am I conscious at that point when I was talking to him? Clearly, I was conscious.
Yeah.
But she didn't give full detail about the context of what that doctor had said. So I have no idea. Then, worse than that, they suggested that my injuries had occurred from me falling over because I'm unsteady on my feet because of my disability, not because I was
Oh,
assaulted, which was
that's a low blow,
low,
that, isn't it?
even for defense. Like, I hope
That's,
that young woman doesn't sleep at night. I really do hope that that young defense barrister cannot close their eyes at night, because I believe that everybody deserves a fair defense. I really do. I always have, but based on facts, not based
yeah.
on lies and not based on low crap like that.
To use someone's disability and try and be like, oh, well, actually, your injuries are because of your own disability, not this thug punching you that we've got on CCTV.
Well, what they said as well, though, was that basically I was talking about the first punch. I couldn't recall exactly where the punch was. So they were saying it wasn't accurate. And I was saying, but I had been punched. And then on the CCTV, like I said, I fall over and land on my backside. So they were saying that's where the first injury came from and the bleed came from. And I was like, but you literally just saw me fall onto my bum, not
Yeah,
onto my face. Like, I've
doesn't
fallen on my
explain facial
backside.
injury.
So I'm saying he's punched me. And then you're showing me a photograph that he's taken of me on the floor with my nose bleeding, which is evidence that he's punched me. And the CCTV shows me falling onto my backside. And yet I've got a facial injury.
Yeah, it makes no sense, does it?
Oh, they said all sorts. They said absolutely all sorts, and it was all just BS. And I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it. I really couldn't believe it. And I know that the defense is there to call your integrity into question. I know they're there to pick holes. I know they're there to try and trip you up. But actually, I didn't feel like she was tripping me up at many points because I feel like I had a response for everything. And I feel like I was just a bit flabbergasted because I couldn't believe the crap coming out of her mouth.
Yeah.
And I think that I was shocked that they were lying.
I know. I think that's the thing we don't. Well, we think that the systems should be fair and it's based on truth, but actually, there's no. You can't account for what people are going to make up. And of course, he's going to make stuff up. He's trying to protect himself. They're just going to come up with whatever they can, unfortunately.
And of course, we work in this adversarial system in the UK where it is about that argument back and forth. It's not really actually based on fact or truth. It's just the argument back and forth. And court is a bit of a pantomime, and it's the best, whoever spins it best.
It
Mm.
sounds like it was a bit of a farce from the initial response, the investigation, getting it to court.
Yes, and also they suggested that my integrity was, no, my professionalism was called into question because my solicitor had walked through why I had a second statement exhibiting CCTV. So why had I recovered the CCTV? And of course, I explained that I'm an ex-crime scene investigator, that and when I called up a couple of days later, an officer in charge had not been appointed, it had been dropped out of the system. Somebody wasn't going to be getting to it to quite some time afterwards. I was concerned that the CCTV footage had been recorded, would be recorded over. Therefore, I thought the best thing to do would be to try and support the investigation and collect the evidence. But later, the defense basically said, "So you're an ex-crime scene investigator?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, when you're at the side of the road, basically after I'd come round and crawled to the side of the road next to my friend, and the police had first arrived, she said that I hadn't reported the domestic assault. I'd only mentioned my assault." And she was like, basically saying, as a professional, as an ex-crime scene investigator, you should know how important it is. And I was like, what? I was like, but I wasn't in professional mode. I'd just been on a
No,
night out with my friend and had a great night. I'd just been assaulted and witnessed her be assaulted. And then I'm sat at the side of the road covered in blood. Things
got nothing.
escalate. Like my initial report at that point can't be relied upon. I'd had a few drinks, I'd had a few blows to the head, and I'd been in the middle of the road unconscious.
But you're also reporting it as when the police are there, you're reporting it as a victim of crime at that point. It's moved beyond the initial action and what initially started it all.
Well,
So you're going to recall the bit that's just happened before you recall what happened down the line. Like if somebody's assaulted and I don't know, as part of it, you realise they've been following you actually for 10 minutes and you'd notice that. When the police arrive, you're not going to start with that bit. You're going to start with, I've been assaulted, aren't you? You're not going to
well,
start with something that happened down the line.
no, it's all a bit bonkers.
That's just insane.
So yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the whole defense was built on lies and BS. So he got found not guilty, which I found shocking. And the conversation that I had with our barrister was how, like, how? Because for me, okay, even if some of what they said was the truth, like, how does it justify that level of violence?
It
Like, how could
doesn't.
it justify that assault and those injuries? Like, for me, it was all based on lies. But even if they were telling the truth, which they weren't, how can anybody justify that level of violence?
No, it's not proportionate at all, is it? Say,
It's
like you
not
say,
proportionate.
say it was true what he said, devil's advocate, you did. He's had a lovely night. Neither of you have got any violent history, anything like that. You randomly decide, let's follow this couple and assault them out of nowhere. You've got a female that's half the size, you've got a big burly bloke. Why would you assault him
Start on
out
him.
of the two of them? First of all, in my mind, is just like, And this is what I'd be thinking as a juror as well. This
Yeah.
would be in my brain as well, thinking about that. But then, okay, that's what you've decided to do. You're going to assault him. What injuries does he have?
Well, I asked the prosecution solicitor, so he was kicked in the testicles, what injuries does he have? And she just looked uncomfortable and she said, oh, he said he had some bruising to his arm.
He said he had.
He said he had. He never recorded it. He never took any photographs and he never reported it to the police. In fact, in his police interview, which the police often suggest, to people who are being interviewed, if you don't answer, it implies guilt because this is your opportunity to give an account. He no commented all the way through.
And why would
So,
you no comment if you had been walking home from a night out and two people just randomly came and attacked you
from
out of
nowhere.
nowhere? You've defended yourself. Why would you not then at that point say that's what's happened? Me and my girlfriend were walking back. These two women have come over, assaulted us. That's what would come out of your mouth.
No comment. Yeah, you wouldn't no comment. You would
Stand up for
basically
yourself.
show your injuries and
Yeah,
suggest that they'd done it. So that's the thing. They've said that we, like, just from having a nice night out, we've been
we
in town with
assaulted.
all of those people.
Yeah, we
And then on the
found two
walk home,
people.
we've just found two random people and decided to start for no
Yeah.
reason. I mean, why?
So
She did ask me, and I was like, but why would
why
I?
would we?
Like, what would? I mean, I can't even get my head around that.
I can't.
Like you
But
say, it's
even
not
like
like we've got criminal histories or violent histories. It's
no,
not like we go out every Saturday and have a scrap.
no. Even if that did happen and you had started on this guy out of nowhere and assaulted him, he's currently presenting with no injuries whatsoever. The girlfriend has no injuries. And
None
the
that they
two of you,
recorded
none that they've recorded,
or reported.
yeah, or reported themselves. But actually, then you've got two women that there is footage of being unconscious. One has a split in her head, has a broken arm. The other one's got a bust nose, blood all over. Like, is that proportionate to actually you've got no injuries and you're saying it's self-defense? It's
Doesn't add up, does it?
it
It's
doesn't add up
insane
at
to
all.
me.
And all I can think in terms of the way that the juries went is that through her cross-examination and the fact that they don't have the footage of the assault on the girlfriend in the first instance,
And they're
it's
both
put
saying the
down,
same thing.
and they're saying the same thing, that it puts doubt into their mind. And that's all you need, reasonable doubt, isn't it? That it didn't happen. And it's not that you don't believe one way or the other, it's that you can't prove it. And that's all I can think of, that they went off that. That's all I can, because the
I
whole
don't
thing to
know.
me is so ludicrous.
And to me, I'd love to have been a fly on the wall in the jury room, or I'd love to be able to speak to one or two of them to think, how can you justify that violence? But this is the thing, isn't it? That I don't think that violence, whether it's physical or sexual, is taken very seriously often against women. I think it's something like only 6% of violent cases against women actually get to court.
Wow.
Even fewer get justice.
Wow. That's just crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, and then
That's
more are
terrible
dropping out the
statistics.
system because you're so far down the line, years down the line, and often it's kind of rape, sexual assault, physical violence, domestic assault. It's traumatic enough for people.
Yeah.
And I have to say that when we were at a court in witness care, the majority of people in there were women going to court about violent crime caused to them by men. And also, men are more likely to get off.
It's crazy, isn't it? Like,
So
we can't
actually,
continue.
we don't get it. But on reflection, we did well even getting it to court, even though we had to fight to get to court.
Yeah. Yeah. It did well. And like you say, the CPS seemed to have a massive say on what actually makes it there in the
Yeah.
first place. And the very fact that they've let that over the threshold, they clearly thought there was enough evidence to get it there.
They don't take things to court unless they're 80% sure that they'll get positive outcome,
Yeah.
which is a significant percentage if you think about it. And again, I asked our prosecution barrister, like, how? I don't understand. And And she said, I don't know. I can't fathom it. And there's no point in trying because you'll drive yourself insane. But basically, the two of you were articulate, you were honest, you came across as credible. I was like, well, because that's what we were. Like, we just went and told the truth. But I don't know. I don't know what the jury's seen. I don't know what the jury's heard. Also, this guy, I know because I've had his name, and of course I've looked him up, has already served 6 years for GBH. So he already assaulted a guy, knocked him unconscious, and then jumped up and down on his head and fractured his skull and broke his jawbone and stuff. So actually, again, we're really lucky because when we were unconscious, he didn't then take it any further. But
Yeah,
he hadn't long been, I think he'd been out of prison a couple of years when he committed this offence. Of course, the jury don't get to know that. And
of
again,
course
rightly
not.
so, I don't
No.
think it would be right to bring in historic offences because you're already talking about somebody's character and they have a right to a fair trial.
And it
But
does introduce bias at that point, doesn't it? If you know someone's done it before.
of course, but also in the same vein, I do think the assault on the copper should have been brought in, regardless of what his plea in that instance was.
I do, because it was relevant. It's part of the same offence. He was arrested as a result of the assault on yourself and your friend. So it should be relevant, his actions, how he went on and conducted himself the rest of that evening, I believe, anyway.
Yeah, me too. So the whole thing has been extremely traumatic.
It
I
sounds
don't know where
it.
I sit in terms, I think my full fundamental belief system in justice, in what's right and what's wrong, and in the criminal justice system has gone. I don't know that I will intervene and help anyone again in the same way. I know what I'm like. I probably can't help myself, but
I was going to say,
I
knowing
don't.
you, I think you would.
And I certainly don't know that I'd partake in the criminal justice system again. And again, I mean, I suppose I'm a bit biased and a bit frustrated at this point, but actually, even from not from that standpoint, I've been saying for a long time, the whole system is absolutely broken. It's
Need an overhaul.
ineffective. It needs a complete overhaul, and I don't think they know where to start. But
Yeah.
then the backlog's so big and significant, I think they're stuck. And one of the other things at the minute is that even if they built the courts and built the prisons, there's not enough criminal lawyers.
No,
4 to 5 years to get to court for a violent crime. I mean, we brought it down to 3, but only because we danced and shouted.
because you don't. Yeah. And I think you've been amazing throughout that. You've fought to get it there, and I think you should be proud of yourself, regardless of the outcome you've had. It wouldn't have even. I don't even know that it would have got to court if you hadn't have kept on with this. And I know it wasn't the outcome that would have hoped for you, but even getting that there, like you say, if only 6% get to court, I think you have done an amazing job to even get it there. I think you should be proud of yourself. You'd be really strong throughout it.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Why would two people fight so hard to get something to court if they were the aggravators and aggressors?
Yeah. And go and collect the CCTV in hope that it wouldn't be lost. And
Yeah.
it's
Support the
if you'd assaulted
investigation.
someone, you'd kind of think, well, I hope they don't get anybody assigned to that because hopefully that'll all disappear in that time.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
feel for anybody going through this process at the minute. I don't suppose I've really helped in this situation. I'm not there like, yeah, you go. It's like, good luck.
And lots of people do go and come out with good outcomes, but I think the point of this conversation really was to have an honest, raw conversation about what you've been through, first of all,
Mm.
and show some of the errors and failings that do go on and the realities of it, because it's not often spoken about like this, is it?
No,
But without, again, having these conversations and people being aware that these things are going on, then people aren't advocating for change if they don't realize how much is broken.
yeah, I think that's the thing. And there's no point in me labouring over the not guilty. I don't want to do that. The justice system has been through its process, and that was the outcome. And as difficult as it might be for me, that is still the outcome, and I have to come to a place of acceptance. But actually, it's much more about the whole process and the failings in the systems, and actually how damaging this system can be to victims.
Yeah. And I think you've showed there as well that raising your voice can make a difference. And
Yeah.
actually, you wouldn't even be in this position right now in terms of having an outcome had you not have put your head above the parapet and said, actually, no, this is not okay, and fought to get it forward.
No, we'd be waiting another couple of years. But then also, I think what would be the point? I think that might be a good place to wrap it up. Do you?
Yeah, but thank you for sharing it with us because that is not an easy thing. It's an emotional journey.
Mm.
It takes, I think it takes a lot of bravery to stand up and talk about these things. So thank you for sharing it with our listeners.
Thank you.
Um,
Thanks for chatting it through with me.
Thank you to everyone for listening and supporting us as always. If you haven't already, please remember to give us a subscribe or a follow on whatever medium it is that you're listening to it on. And we will be back in a fortnight's time where we will take you back under the barrier tape.